They all clamored among themselves on how they should proceed. Most of them had a negative outlook and had lost all their motivation. Some even went as far as to suggest splitting up the family fortune and parting ways. Silence. Silence. Andrew banged his cane heavily on the ground to stop the chatters. Then, he continued, though the Harmon family is currently facing some hardship, this will not be the end of us. As long as we unite, there is bound to be a way out for us. If you have any ideas, sir, tell us what you think, someone said. What we need to do now is to choose a family head to organize and lead the family. As long as we have a competent leader, we can restore the family to what it used to be, Andrew said. A new family head. Everyone looked around curiously as they speculated on who would be the family's next leader. Both Hector and Trent were now dead, and Jacob had gone missing. The second generation of direct Harmon descendants were all out of the question. Who would be eligible to take the position of the head of the family? Who do you think would be a suitable candidate, sir? Someone asked. There is only one person among us who can lead the family now. And that person is none other than Natasha, Andrew declared. Natasha. All eyes fell on Natasha at that. But as opposed to her usual charismatic self, Natasha now sat in silence. She did not care for anything going on around her. As we all know, Natasha is exceptionally capable, and she is also entrepreneurial. All the companies she started up in recent years are doing well and making good profits. She will have no problem leading the Harmon family, Andrew declared confidently. It is true that Natasha is capable. But she's too young. I'm afraid there will be people who would not be pleased to have her becoming the family head. One of the older family members voiced his doubts. With the Harmon family's current situation, we need a dynamic and decisive leader. Natasha suits the position best. Her age does not matter. The family is a hair's breadth away from perishing. We cannot be bothered by something as trivial as her age, Andrew said. That's right. I support Natasha becoming the leader of the family. Her Immortunal is making great profit, and she's the family's only hope of recovering. A senior member of the family stood up in support of Natasha. Desperate times call for desperate measures. There's no one more suited to be the family head than Natasha. I agree with having her as the new head. Natasha is exceedingly smart. I'm sure she'll be able to restore the family to its former glory. I support her, too. Mr. Harmon Sr. is right. We all support your suggestion. Most of the Harmons agreed with Andrew's suggestion. The few voices who doubted his suggestion were quickly drowned out. Hence, Natasha was quickly appointed as the new head of the family. Natasha, everyone is supportive and approves of you becoming the family's new leader. What do you think about it? Andrew asked. I'm not sure, grandfather. Natasha shook her head. Her father had just passed recently. It was natural that she wasn't in the mood to take his place. Natasha, I know appointing you as the new family head now will be hard on you. But you must get yourself together. With great power comes great responsibility. I'm sure your father would not like to see the family falling apart now that he's gone. It's time you take up the responsibility, Andrew said, concerned. Natasha opened her mouth to say something but found that she had none. With great power comes great responsibility. What rubbish is that? An authoritative voice sounded by the door. Everyone looked over to see a well-dressed man with white hair on his head. He strode in with his hands behind his back. Behind him, a troop of men followed. If the Harmon family is going down, that's on you. Do not drag my granddaughter into this, or I'll make you sorry. The old man had a strong, commanding presence. But his attitude garnered a lot of displeasure from the Harmons. A youngster from the Harmon family slammed his hand on the table as he roared, Hey, who are you, you old thing? How dare you run your mouth with us, Harmons? Do you have a death wish? He had barely finished speaking when one of the old man's servants rushed forward and slapped the youngster. The servant had a hunched back. With a loud, crisp smack, the youngster was sent flying. He fell to the ground lifelessly and passed out on the spot. How dare you? That's too much. The Harmons stood up furiously, some slamming their hands on the table at the sight. The Harmon family might not be as great as before, but they wouldn't let others bully them. Guards! Capture them, an elder of the Harmon family ordered. Stop it. Stop it right there, all of you. Andrew was shocked by what was happening and immediately stopped the Harmons from acting rashly. Then, he hurried over to the well-dressed old man and bowed deeply. In a loud and clear voice, he said, "Andrew Harmon at your service, your lordship, Duke of Lancashire." "What? Duke?" When they heard how Andrew had addressed the old man, a clamour broke out among the Harmons. Those who had been rude to the old man froze on the spot, fear on their faces. All the Harmons were stupefied. Andrew's words had shocked them. None of them had expected that the well-dressed old man was actually the noble Duke of Lancashire. In the 5 peerage rankings, namely Duke, Marquess, Earl, Viscount, and Baron, the Dukes were ranked first. They were of the highest ranking of nobilities and were above everyone else. Their influence exceeded even that of first-ranking ministers. They were the definition of authority. The Grants had become the leader of the Tremendous Three in Millsburg just because Arthur was an earl. The Harmons dared not even think how much power a duke possessed. But the question was, why would a duke show up at the Harmon family residence? Who among them got such an influential person to come here personally? What are all of you doing just standing there? Quick, bow to his lordship. Andrew turned to shout at the rest of them. He was so anxious that he was sweating all over. The old man before them wasn't just anyone. He was Natasha's maternal grandmother, the renowned Duke of Lancashire, Simon Ballard. "GR greetings, your lordship." The Harmons finally snapped out of it and bowed to Simon, showing respect and looking extremely nervous. After all, a person of his status and title could wipe out the entire Harmon family with just the snap of his fingers. "We are honored that you have graced us with your presence, your lordship. Please forgive us for our poor welcome," Andrew apologized with a bow. "Me. Had it not been for my granddaughter, I'd never have visited such a shabby place." Simon looked away frostily, disregarding the apology. He had been strongly against the marriage back when his daughter wanted to marry a Harmon. The Harmon family was just a humble family that was not suited for a daughter of the Duke, but because of love, his daughter had eloped with Hector, angering the Duke so much that he severed all ties with her. It was when Natasha was born that their relationship became less strained. As for Hector, he had never deemed him worthy of being his son-in-law. "Why are you here, grandfather?" Natasha was surprised by Simon's sudden visit. For as long as she could remember, her maternal grandfather had never gotten along with her father. In fact, he had never visited the Harmons. "Grandfather?" The Harmons were once again astonished to hear Natasha address him as such. What was going on? Natasha was the granddaughter of a duke. And they knew nothing about it all this time. "I heard that some things have happened to the Harmon family, so I came over to check on you." "How are you, Missy? You all right?" Simon's expression softened swiftly. He looked kind and gentle, completely different from the cold, harsh, and domineering person he was earlier. "I'm fine. But my father..." Natasha stopped before she could finish her sentence, taken over by a wave of sorrow. "I heard about your father. The culprit has been executed." "You should stay strong," Simon sighed. Though he had never liked Hector much, he was his son-in-law no matter what. Now that he was dead, as his father-in-law, there was no way Simon could pretend that Hector had nothing to do with him. "What are your plans going forward?" Simon changed the topic. "I'm not sure either." Natasha shook her head. She was distraught, and her thoughts were a mess. "If you're unsure, then you should return with me," Simon coaxed gently. "This little place is not good enough for you. Oakvale is where you belong. But what will happen to the Harmon family once I'm gone?" Natasha turned to look behind her. Her father had just passed away, and the family was on the verge of breaking apart. She'd feel bad to just walk away like that.